look at the minutes and make a motion of approval. Yep. We will start with APD quarterly report update.
Thank you. Just want to start out by introducing myself. I am Deputy Chief Wade Wood, and appreciate the opportunity to present to you all today. Really, just kind of giving a quarterly update, but general update for the past several months as well. I'm going to be giving an overview of some of our citywide crime data, traffic stops, violent crime task force, and other notable accomplishments and progress that we've made over the past few months. I want to start out by kind of giving a summary or a larger overview of what I'm going to present to the body as well. So, and then after that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer as we move forward. The summary, really, the violent gun crime is up 26% year to date over 2018. Pretty significant. And what we're talking about with violent gun is homicides, aggravated assault, and robbery. That's similar incidents. We set up a violent crime task force with APD officers partnering with some of our local and federal partners. It concluded in August. Had some great success with that task force, making Asheville safer, taking 43 guns off the street, and making 44 charges for offender, or 44 offenders charged. Homicides. You can never have good news related to homicides. We have seen a decrease, but naturally any homicide is one we want to have in our jurisdiction or anywhere. So went from 11 to 5 year to date, versus 18 to 19. Property crimes still continues to be a major challenge, up significantly with the largest increase in stolen properties. Traffic stops had 7% in traffic stops were on white drivers, while 22% were on black drivers. One reminder that also much of this data is going to be available to the public on the open data sites, public transparency. So if you want to look at that further, that's always available. Next slide, and I apologize. Hopefully you guys have that in front of you still. I hate that slide, but just the NIBR slide is very challenging to read. A lot of the information is year to date through August of 19. In comparison of the previous 4 years, we're the same, and this is conversion. As you maybe recall, we've transitioned from UCR to NIBRS, so this is, we converted the previous data to NIBRS, so it is apples to apples. As noted previously, homicides are down from 11 to 5 in the past year. And property crimes still high, continue to be the largest incidents. We have larceny and also some uptick in arson. And just as a side note to that, Asheville Police Department is working closely with the fire department in investigating arsons. We're taking on the role of being investigators for arsons, which is kind of a shift between the agencies. So they used to have a dedicated arson investigator for the fire department. Now that's going to be one of our detectives that works hand in hand with their fire marshals and arson investigators. They're not correct. So just moving around there. And I think it's working very well. So we're able to get the benefit of more investigators with law enforcement experience working hand in hand with the fire. So I think that's working well for the city as well as both entities. I'm sorry, on what? I don't have that breakdown, quite honestly. I can get that for you, but that is, you can look at that if you go to the web,
arson crimes.
Community-
EDC or
Community
whatever.
crime.
The community crime
Community
map.
crime, you can find that and just, you can search it by offense, so you can find that. But it's, typically, it's gonna be very well dispersed.
I don't know if they say this, but do they seem like random acts or does it seem like it's more organized?
Usually you have a group or one or two folks that are responsible for multiple offenses, and that's generally what you will get. There are some one-offs, but usually there's responsible for multiple offenses. And that's kind of what goes into what started us with the standing up the task force, the violent crime task force, because we knew there were a select small group that was responsible for that, so we wanted to pull resources together and focus on those that were responsible. And that, we did see some great success with that.
Yes, they do make arrests around robberies, probably guns.
Yes, yeah, usually, not always do we locate the gun as well, but usually we are having some success. At least another gun, and there's usually some stolen guns associated with that as well.
The drug and narcotics offenses are up 35%. Is that, I think, is there?
I think there's a nexus, quite honestly, to some of the violent, yeah.
Oh, okay, oh, it's.
They said there's a nexus to violent crime, so there's, where we, usually where you find some of the larger dealers or the more prolific dealers, there's gonna be weapons and violent crime associated, so that helps, they mirror each other.
Right. And is that, I mean, are these, you know, do we compare the city to Fulton County and to other major cities? I mean, is this, I mean, I've been reading that violent crimes, and especially theft around the country, has been up. I mean, is this kind of a national trend?
I think it's consistent with the national trend in general, but we do, annually, you're able to get the annual report that compares locales, so you can find that, but I think just intuitively, talking to peers around and local jurisdictions as well, they're seeing an uptick as well. Next, kind of going into what we're talking about as well as citywide violent crimes involving firearms and, excuse me, the firearm crimes that we're talking about, once again, are homicide, aggravated assault, and robbery, and those related offenses. So you can see the uptick in May, we saw the huge increase of 23 offenses. That gave us a great concern. So we stood up that task force and had some very good results. But as you can see, there is an uptick again. And quite frankly, I think there are still some of those same players that are still responsible. Percentage change over the years. This kind of gives you a historical perspective of where we're looking at, so we're not just comparing one year, last year to this year. So if you go back to 15 forward, we saw a 10% decrease in 16. But since then, we've seen double-digit increases annually. And last year with a 26% increase. And while that's bad, I think also that's, I think with some of our focus and some of the relationship building we're doing within the community, we're getting more folks to report. So that also gives attributes to the increase in the numbers being reported, which is good that we know about it. It's bad that it's occurring. So I think there's a combination of citizen reporting and just increased events. So I think that is not good for the city as a whole, but it's good that we're having relationships that are being fostered there to help us become aware of incidents previously unreported or underreported anyway.
That number doesn't account for arrest cases.
No, this is just offenses, correct? Offenses reported. And keep that in mind, because there's still gonna be more that's not reported, right? So just to summarize, From 16 forward, there's been a 59% increase in gun crime for the past 4 years. Traffic stop map, and I think you guys are very familiar with these. Spatial pattern picks all traffic stops, April 1 through June 30th. Total of 2,938 traffic stops, and which 21.8 or 22% roughly were black drivers, and 78% were on white drivers. And you can see the heat map where most of the traffic stops are occurring. This spatial map depicts the, I'm sorry, you don't like the map either.
I was just saying, black and white versus, I mean, is it color or what?
It actually does black and white.
So no,
So Hispanic is not broken out.
so that would be considered.
It's an ethnicity, yes. There again, that's the state form.
That's all, okay.
Well, their data reporting, so yeah, it is kind of, yeah, it's black and white. This one depicts the 10 most frequent traffic stop locations, and pretty consistent over quarter to quarter that we're seeing.
Wait, did I ask you about, before we move on, the 2938? I can't recall what the number was previously, but
Traffic stops, that's pretty much in line, yeah, because I think we average around 10,000 a year, so you're looking at 3,000 quarters, so within realm. I think might be a little increased, because there again, with our focus on violent crimes, we're gonna be having an uptick in enforcement violent, in high crime areas as well, so maybe some of that, but it's not it doesn't seem to be a dramatic increase. The Violent Crime Task Force update was stood up in June. Ran that, and this is what I was talking about. And the focus of this was gun violence. We were having a lot of gun violence, so the violent crime is to focus on gun crimes and related offenses. We ended that task force proper in August, because some of the subjects that were responsible for the crimes we had identified and arrested and or taken out warrants on. So that kind of ran against the ones that were responsible for several of the offenses and that we knew of, that we could tie to. And then, so I think we're at an ending point for that, other than just trying to locate and arrest the folks that we have. We still have a couple outstanding. But going back to that with the 44 offenses charged and the number of guns taken off the street, I think there were 13 of those were stolen firearms, I believe, out of that. So it was a large portion of firearms, and some of those pretty significant long guns and rifles. So it is, I think that task force was well worth the investment, and it further solidified our partnerships with the federal and local agencies to help further that with not only Asheville sector, but the region. Continuation that there is 43 guns, 13 which were stolen, 44 arrests, so that made more charges, but at least 44 individuals charged. 500 grams of various drugs and $19,000 in U.S. currency. And that, one of those 44 offenders, 14 of those were previously identified as violent crime offenders, so we kind of knew some of the frequent flyers, and some of these were some of the lesser known associates or just unrelated. There's usually a nexus to that. And moving forward to some of our positive community efforts. As I alluded to earlier, the encouragement and increase of input from our community is there to continue to encourage that. And it is having an drugs are still there, and I know we're doing several things, working with the county and standing up a new outreach with Homeward Bound, or some of the outreach. It's gonna have to be a holistic approach, and I know Mayor Campbell alludes to that on a regular basis. It is, we know we can't arrest our way out of the drug epidemic, it's gonna have to be a holistic approach. And I think it's good that as a community, we're moving that way, but it's, I still think it's gonna be a while before we're able to see that needle move dramatically, just because of the time involved for rehab, for providers to be in place to be able to handle that capacity.
So what is what I arrested, and they received the same charges, the federal charges?
A combination thereof, and I don't have that breakdown. And typically, since we were working with our federal partners, just a general note is that if there's a violent crime with a gun and someone has a previous history, generally the federal agencies will adopt that. So that's how it is, but I do not have that breakdown. Want to encourage our residents, neighbors, tourists to be aware of what's happening, particularly in the neighborhoods or the areas in which you're being active and about, and also to take a stand in silence. If you see something or hear something, say something. And that's going to be I think, our continued mantra that we'll continue to reiterate. And it's working. I think we are seeing some of that. We are getting more cooperation. We're getting more input. Quite frankly, there's still room to build that trust and get where there are more violent crimes. We still have some unsolved homicides where we know there's some witnesses. So if we can continue to build that and get the folks to come forward, and there's generally room to come forward and not on the states. Hopefully they will do that. Level progress. Written consent has continued to move along. I know I think our benchmark, even with the transition of chiefs again, I think we're still looking for a 60-day turnaround. So, and we're, yeah, I think that's very reasonable. And I would, quite honestly, I would estimate prior to that, just where our current status is. I think we're in a good position with that. Not as soon as we need to go on it, but we're there.
But, so, I mean, like, what's happening now is basically training.
Finalizing forms and procedures for us, and then there will be some, I think training will really be minimal, but there will be some training with that. And then just making sure, and we're also, some of the forms we're having translated into Spanish and Ukrainian, which are some of the primary languages. So we're making sure we have those basics covered.
And which education?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I think there's some in the near future. Recently, we've completed the Train the Trainer in Epic, which is many things from the recommendations of our previous consultant. That was done the past week or two, and we're going to start training internally in October, which will be good. For those that don't know, it's came out of New Orleans. It's ethical policing is courageous. And it's basically just showing support from the entire agency, from the command staff down and from the bottom up, that if we see someone getting emotionally hijacked, to call each other out to stop someone from going off the rails before it goes off the rails, and to help kind of be the conscious to keep an issue from evolving into an issue. And it's kind of someone being there. You have my authority to be my conscience if you see me out of line. And it has New Orleans has seen a dramatic increase in or dramatic decrease in incidents, but a dramatic increase in community support. So I think that will go hand. I know that will go hand in hand with that as well.
How many trainers how many participants did you have?
We had, let's say, 15. And that's trained, yeah. It was a trained trainer, so we brought in staff from New Orleans to train. And then we had APD officers and supervisors and once more participate in that. And they're going to be the trainers for us. So it's peer training.
And then what about steps moving forward, so like on hold forward?
So in October, we're gonna start with the initial classes for,
And more like,
yeah, department-wide, so it's gonna go out with, for probably the next 6 months or so, it's pretty much trained out, but we are doing that, and then for the new academies that are graduating, we're going to get those as they come out as well, so certainly as they're onboarded, they will get it, but then we're gonna do it across the agency as well. I'm not speaking of academies. We have 9 officers that are in field training. Going out here the first of the year to be a solo officer. We have 13 that are in the basic law enforcement academy. They will probably, it's probably around the first of the year we'll start into FTO. Once they complete some further in-house training, and part of that will include the training. As of yet. We created and appointed some new positions for liaisons to the LGBTQ community. We've had some some staff designated in that role years ago, and just all need to reinvigorate that, so we can make those appointments. And that's most everyone should. We're going to have an interim chief, Robert White, starting on October 1st. And just fortunately, had some joint roll calls scheduled for the time, so it's going to provide an opportunity for him to meet with the vast majority of the men and women of the department at that, and then within his first week of days. So that's a huge benefit for them and him. So. All right, thank you.
Okay, so now we'll move on to APD 2019 JAG grant.
Hi, Macy Thompson, APD Financial Manager. Answer any questions you have about this four grants. I will tell you that the Bike Safe grant is a new one, 11A. The other three are recurring grants that we've had for quite a few years. It's just the new year of the new version of that grant. The JAG grants, it stands for Justice Assistance Grant. It's given by the Department of Justice, and it allows APD and Buncombe County Sheriff's Office to use funds from the federal government for certain things that we need to have done. So, for example, APD will use their funds for overtime for the violent crime task force that we have periodically through the year. Buncombe County is going to use their funds to buy ballistic helmets. That grant is, there's no match by the city, it's 100% paid by the federal. The next grant is the DWI Task Force grant. That is, I think this is year 7 of that grant, and the DWI Task Force is made up of 4 APD officers and 2 Buncombe County Sheriff's deputies. It's a 75% match, which means we pay 75% of the cost of those officers' salaries, benefits, and sometimes travel. And the city and the county match it, or gets reimbursed for 25% of those costs. And their job is really to prevent and interdict driving while under the influence of something. Like Safe Grant. This is a new one this year. It's a $5,000 grant. There's no match. And the purpose of that is to help reduce motorcycle fatalities in Asheville. And you have the history about where the name came from. I don't like the name either, but now we know why it is what it is.
Those people started in London.
The last grant is the HIDA grant, and that stands for High Intensity Drug Trafficking Areas. APD is a fiduciary for this grant. There's no match. It's managed or run primarily by the Drug Enforcement Administration here in Asheville. We have one officer that's a member of the team, but the rest of the team are made up of sheriffs and deputies from around the counties surrounding Buncombe County. I'm the fiduciary for the grant, so my job is to make sure they're spending the money on what they're supposed to be spending it on. And just so you know, when they have an expense, the city reimburses the people that incur the expense. And then we file a claim against the federal government to get the city's money back. There's usually a lag time of 1 to 2 months in getting the money back from the federal government. They're very, not the right word is, very strict on the receipts that we send them, and they question just about every one. So we have to be very sure what we're sending or spending the money on, document it properly so we can get our return from the federal government. And that is a no-match grant as well. So one other thing, these grants usually have a life of 2 to 3 years. So even though the HIDA grant says 2019, we have 2 other years still going for HIDA grant, 2017, 2018. So you have to manage each of those individually and try to keep up with them to make sure that you apply the money in the right grant.
I see any trend to the grants being reduced or eliminated from national level? Or conversely increased?
The HIDA grant has actually been increased. It used to be very small, like $25,000. For 2018, it's $346,000. The local DEA keeps expanding the number of counties that they're providing services to, and so they're bringing more deputies on board who we pay overtime to, travel expense to, and now there's a lot more supplies and services they need. That one's getting bigger. The JAG grant isn't really changing the dollars, but what we've noticed is they're much later in the year of telling us, okay, it's time to apply for the grant, and they take a lot longer to award the grant after you've got your application in. DWI grant's pretty much the same. The big change there was in year 1, it was 100% funded by the state and federal government. Now we're down to 25%. We're funding the other 75%. Bike Safe grant, first year, no, it's just a small one, 5,000. I'm guessing that will continue as well. Any questions? Thank you.
And motion to move these 4 items to full council.
Okay. Next, we go to ASD automatic aid agreement. Sorry, where am I at?
I seconded
So moved, or, okay. We didn't take a vote. Okay. So,
Good morning, Scott Burnett, Fire Chief. I'm here today to ask the committee to review an agreement between the City of Asheville and the Renz Creek Fire Department that is up for renewal. This agreement originated in 2013. The City of Asheville pays the Renz Creek Fire Department to provide fire protection EMS in the Beaver Dam Valley with us. These funds allow them to send 2 firefighters available 24/7 with our folks. Prior to this agreement, we performed at 20% in the Beaver Dam area for outcomes and fire emergencies, medical emergencies. Since 2013, with their automatic aid, performance is over 90%. And so the terms of the agreement since 2013 have increased by the Southeastern cost of living adjustment, which is typically between 1% and 3% every year. And so the current amount that is up for renewal is a little over $91,000.
Chief, what does that mean? Did they send 2 firefighters? Are they?
So Excellent question. So our closest fire station to the Beaver Dam Valley is Fire Station 7 in North Asheville off Larchmont. And the distance prevents us from having a performance at better than 20%. They happen to have a fire station in Beaver Dam Valley to protect the areas that are outside of the city. And so they had one firefighter stationed there before 2013. And so when we entered into this agreement, they were able to hire enough firefighters that they continuously had two there. So when an emergency occurs, Engine 7 typically is the closest City of Asheville engine that will respond. And then Beaver Dam will send a two firefighter company on a fire truck. They almost always get there before us unless they're delayed on another emergency. And typically will cancel our unit unless those folks are needed. So,
I mean, two firefighters usually go.
correct, right.
Usually one firefighter.
Yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, and that is accurate. And so, the,
Two firefighters do a lot of things, they just typically are larger.
yes, ma'am. So we're on the road heading that way. And, if they see that the emergency is less than what's initially reported, then they can cancel us. If not, then, we'll get there, several minutes after they arrive. But they can start the initial actions.
And is this the only relationship like that where we're paying or that we're receiving? I assume that we don't do this for any of the.
That is correct. So
not-
this
not
is
money or-
correct. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, so this is the only automatic aid agreement that where money is exchanged. We have automatic aid agreements with all of the other fire departments, but there's no money exchange received or provided. The only thing that would be similar is, but it's not related to automatic aid, is we have a co-located fire station in South Asheville with the Skyline Fire Department. We share expenses, so we have an agreement where they pay 51% of the cost and we pay 49%. It's independent of automatic aid.
I would like to, move this on to the council. Or do we have to?
So be it.
Like, so the.
Like a.
Amen. And make it happen.
Okay.
Morning, council members. This is the ordinance that started out as a transit-specific ordinance and somehow over time, and I'll explain the background of that. The genesis for this was a concern that had come from our multimodal committee, our transit committee, and from our bus drivers themselves, indicating that they had concerns over a lack of clarity on what would constitute a weapon on a bus and what people could or could not bring onto a bus. So this project started out as an intent to adopt a policy.
Could you say your name?
Thank you. I'm Eric Etterson. I'm a senior assistant city attorney with the city of Asheville. And so we started looking at that one issue, and in doing so, we identified that our general weapons ordinance that applies to all city buildings could also use an update as well. So it's now expanded to be both an ordinance that relates to weapons that could be brought on buses and prohibits certain weapons from being brought on buses, and it also clarifies our existing weapons ordinance for city buildings. And so that ordinance hadn't been updated since 2011. There's been some guidance from North Carolina Attorney General's office that helps clarify what we can and cannot do with respect to weapons on city property. And so really the portions of the ordinance that relate to city buildings, they're a lot longer than our former ordinance, but they're meant to just clarify what you can do, what you can bring into a city building, what you can't, and who is exempted from those, most importantly. So certain people are by statute exempted from our ability to regulate who can bring a gun specifically into a city building. So we've now clarified that this ordinance applies to everyone except for this subset of people who we don't have the authority to regulate. On the city buses, we've created an ordinance that didn't exist before. It would prohibit people from bringing any sort of dangerous weapons onto a bus, subject to one major limitation, which I wanted to explain to you all now before the full council meeting, which is that we do not have the authority to regulate firearms on buses. So per state statute, and I have copies if you want to dive into it.
Yes, I was gonna read a definition, number one is traditional open carry setting, main open carry in a motor vehicle, however, localities may regulate the carrying of firearms under certain circumstances.
You're all over it, and I'll hand out another statute. And this is about as clear as you can get. I mean, this is North Carolina General Statute, section 14-409.40, and in the first subsection there says, it is declared by the General Assembly that the regulation of firearms is properly an issue of general statewide concern, and that the entire field of regulation of firearms is preempted from regulation by local governments, except as provided in this section. And that last statement there, that last clause, except as provided in this section, is important because it does give us some ability to regulate with respect to our buildings and the appurtenant premises. So that gets to a sort of practical consideration with respect to the buses. So the transit center is arguably a building, at least the ticket office is, and the remainder of it is certainly an appurtenant premises. So we have the ability to prohibit guns from the transit center, which will de facto catch a lot of the behavior that we're trying to address, which is anybody bringing anything dangerous onto a bus. So if your ride starts at the transit center or arrives at the transit center, we're gonna address everyone in that category. But for people who are getting on the bus on one end of Merriman and getting off before they get to the transit center, that is because of this regulation outside of our purview. So the ordinance is structured to regulate dangerous weapons and firearms separately. So it has provisions prohibiting both of those from city buildings and appurtenant premises. But the bus language is specific to dangerous weapons. It stops short. We do not say firearms because we cannot do so. So that's the one limitation. We've taken this to the transit subcommittee of multimodal. We've taken this to multimodal yesterday. They've had a full discussion of, there's some consideration of removing chemical weapons, so pepper spray or mace, from the bus section of the ordinance. They ultimately landed on that should remain in there, and that there should be training provided to bus drivers as to when they really need to call APD to report a dangerous weapon and let it be dealt with from a pragmatic standpoint like that. So we don't anticipate people are going to get called if they have a small thing of mace on the keychain, but it will be prohibited under this ordinance. It'll just be a practical consideration of training the bus drivers as to when they really need to call for assistance from APD. Those are the two prongs of the ordinance. One, bringing buses into the dangerous weapons category, and then two, to clarify our existing regulations with respect to city buildings. I'll be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Did you just say that they will be allowed to have like this on the keychain or that?
It will be technically prohibited, and it will be subject to the ordinance. The reason for that is there's a horse race from a member of the transit committee who had in fact been on a bus when a can of mace was set off, and the fear was that is in fact in a closed space a very particularly dangerous type of dangerous weapon. And so if it's something that is going to create a real risk, we need to have a tool available to address it, to say that this is in fact prohibited and you cannot bring that can of bear spray or whatever onto the bus. So that's where they landed on it. They thought that it should still be prohibited, and then just trust that no one's going to be calling 911 every time they see a can of mace on a keychain in a bus.
How about, there's a lot of subjectivity around the walkies.
Yes.
I see a lot of people being on the bus with walkies. But I've also seen that state incidents.
Yeah.
So,
The
has that,
The hook for us is the definition of dangerous weapon is something that's designed to inflict bodily harm on another. So if it's a club, a cudgel, something that is not helping someone move around, that would probably fall within the definition of dangerous weapon. It would. If it's a cane, or a genuinely necessary walking stick that someone is in fact using. Right. There's always going to be things that fall into the gray area. For the purpose of this, the definition is if it was designed to inflict harm. So that's really what's going to divide the category of real walking assistant devices or something that somebody's bring around to cause me.
I would recommend the council for the city's proposed to expand the dangerous weapons ordinance. I appreciate you getting as far as we can.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All in favor, say aye. All right, now we move on to public comment. You state your name.
Yes,
3 minutes.
I apologize if I look down here because I have some notes and some data. My name is Brooke Heaton. I'm a resident of West Asheville. I live pretty much at the center of the Haywood corridor, right around Oyster House. Thank you all for your work, and I know I've either written some of you or talked to some of you, so if you've taken the time to talk to me, thank you very much. Wanted to talk to you about an issue that's been of rising concern in my part of the city in West Asheville, that is rising crime. The data that you saw presented earlier by Deputy Chief Wood is very similar to what I'm going to be speaking about. Over the course of the summer, we saw a rash of crime in West Asheville. If you were on social media or if you were on any of the outlets where neighbors talk, you saw basically an echo chamber of incidents that were happening. On my block especially, we had a number of incidents. It was often very small, property, petty crime, mail being stolen, cars being ruffled through. We had some car theft as well. Occasionally we had incidents where neighbors were harassed by people driving through our block. And so in addition to those incidents, there were also a number of news stories that were coming out in the Mountain Express or in the Citizen Times or WLOS about crime specifically in West Asheville. And so I kind of looked at the issue and I thought, is this just a bunch of anecdotal stories? I wanted to look at the data, so thank you very much for offering transparency and open data. I did look at the crime mapping tool, which is very useful for doing year-on-year comparisons. And as a private citizen in Nashville, that's one of the few ways that I have to inform myself. So I looked at some of the data, specifically the LexisNexis data portal, and these were the figures that I came up with. And just to be clear about it, the data portal does not allow filtering by zip code. I've written your technicians in Colorado about this, but it does allow you to get a pretty focused radius on 28806 with a 3-mile perimeter. And if you look only within that, this is the crime data for West Asheville that I'm seeing. So year on year, comparing 2019 to 2018, this is January 1 to September 17th. That's the closest data I could get. Burglary from a motor vehicle, I believe these are called Tarbinis, are up from 130 in 2018 to 299 this year. That's a 130% increase. It's a lot. Commercial burglaries are up from 37 to 82. That's a 121% increase. Individual robberies are up 57%. Theft is up 40%. Motor vehicle theft, so stealing a car, that's up 45%. And residential burglaries are up 23%. So it does vary. Most of the stuff that we're seeing, most of the stuff that seems to be affecting most people, so 300 incidents, that's likely mail theft or property theft or your car being ruffled through. So the reality is, and what I found out, this wasn't in people's heads, and it is concerning. It is a legitimate concern, right? Rising crime, and if you look back to 2015, I have those numbers as well. It's been a really, really bad year in 2019 in West Asheville. So after seeing how troubling the crime rates have become and seeing a number of people gripe about it on social media, I said, hey, why don't we just get together? We're neighbors, we're a community. Let's talk about it. Is this real? Let's share data. Let's talk about what's going on in West Asheville. Let's talk to the city council. You know, this is our community. We should be working together. So about 30 of us met at the Trinity Methodist Church in early September. It was a diverse group. It was a lot of various opinions were exchanged. Not everyone agreed on the root causes. There were some arguments. That's what happens when neighbors talk about these things, right? Crime is not a it's a pretty controversial issue, I think. And whether you should be concerned about it, that's a controversial issue. So, I know a lot of people are working on some of the root causes of the crimes that we're seeing. I think we're seeing a lot of petty property crime that reflects an environment of an opioid epidemic and poverty. And I know people are working really hard on those issues. It's complicated, and I think recent events in Nashville have also strained the ability to really enforce laws and then the police department's ability to work with communities. So we exchanged a number of ideas as far as what can be done. I want to point to one thing that I think could be an overarching kind of approach to this. I think it's happening in Nashville, but it could happen more. In 2014, President Obama, by executive order, established a task force on 21st century policing. You've probably already heard this, so I apologize. But one of the main pillars is community policing and crime reduction, and specifically focuses on, this is quoting it, the importance of community policing as a guiding philosophy for all stakeholders. Community policing emphasizes working with neighborhood residents to co-produce public safety. Law enforcement agencies should therefore work with community residents to identify problems and collaborate on implementing solutions that produce meaningful results for the community. I think that's great, and I think that is happening in Asheville. But I think it's a problematic way to approach crime in West Asheville when we have essentially a skeleton police force. It was established, I believe, sometime about 15 to 20 years ago. By the numbers that I'm seeing, and I've been told, and I've asked for this information when the folks in this room have it, I'd love to talk to you, but I understand that in general, there's about 4 officers on duty in West Asheville. I don't know if that's the case. I've also heard that in general, 2 officers have to respond to each incident. If that is the case, if I'm wrong, I'm happy to talk afterwards because our group is asking for these numbers. If that is the case, I don't see how 2 active units can possibly develop community policing in West Asheville whatsoever. It's entirely insufficient, and it would definitely explain why you saw some of those numbers growing increasingly over last year, specifically property crime. According to FBI data as well, if West Asheville were an average city, and average cities have 2.5 officers per 1,000 residents, that's the FBI data from 2011, if we were our own city, we would have 100 officers in West Asheville. I don't know if we have 100 officers in West Asheville, and I imagine if we did, there probably would be a discussion about whether that's over-policing or not. But I don't believe you can possibly implement better community policing and better community relationships between the police department unless the West Asheville police presence is either increased or if they can work more with the community. You don't necessarily need to have officers constantly responding to incidents. You can have them work with community residents as well. I mentioned to you the group that we now have about 70 people that are actively involved. That's purely word of mouth. We've not announced this. We've not done any outreach. We'll likely meet again soon. We do invite any council members to speak to the group. I've talked to some already who are willing to. I know it's hard to find consensus, but I would point to these things. I would say I'd like council to take a closer look at West Asheville specifically. I know some time ago they established the West Asheville station, so this has been an issue previously. A lot of residents want to see more police on the foot, on bikes, actually see them present in their neighborhoods because they're being victimized, but they don't see what's being done about it. And the one thing they want to see is some kind of presence. It doesn't mean they want to see an officer arresting someone, they just want to be able to talk to them. I will tip my hat to Officer Isaiah Siniak, who has talked to me about this issue, as well as Lieutenant Stepp, who talked to me about this. I think also there is a concern about the opioid crisis, and I don't know that any resident knows what to do about that. I know people are working on addiction and harm prevention as well. Also, a lot of these criminals that we see are familiar faces. The one in particular that's been on my block a number of times, I don't know if she's out again, but we've seen her arrested 3 times in the past 5 months, and I believe she was arrested twice before that, so I believe it's her 5th arrest in 2019. I don't know who to go to about that, but it's pretty frustrating when you see the same person that stole something from you last week just out on your block again. I'd like to know what's going on. Yeah, and I'd say please take a closer look at policing through community policing, and I don't think current efforts are sufficient. Thank you very much. Is that my, yes, is that 3 minutes? Thank you very much for your time.
So you are in touch with APD and your group is having conversations with APD?
Yes, but I don't think that's really where we're going to see change.
What are you looking to see?
I think I went through it, so I can go over my points again. But I'd like to see more community policing. I'd like to see increased presence in West Asheville. More than likely, we probably, and I'd like to see some numbers as far as how many officers are actively on duty. I think most residents have the impression that it's entirely insufficient. I believe that if you see the crime rates double like that, there is a problem that you should be taking a look at. I'm glad you're asking me questions. But I don't think that the level of policing we're seeing is sufficient. I think there is a perception of over-policing, but I think that means a lot of things in the city. We're really looking to see more community policing from the APDs because when you have crime rates increasing year on year like that, obviously something needs to be done. The question is what's being done about it. Our impression in general is probably it's a skeleton police force that's really stretched for time, has no time to do community policing. To be frank with you, many of them don't have time to take reports. We've heard from a number of residents who were encouraged to not report crime or told that they wouldn't take a report or the report was not taken. They had to contact Officer Zinyak to get a report. That to me is symbolic and reflective of a very skeleton police force that's strapped for time and has no ability to actually even go, visit an incident. So, okay, that's my impression.
I would just recommend that y'all continue to contact council, but I do feel like that APD can answer a lot of the questions
think our concern is not with the APD. I think it's mostly with the city.